Hello, everyone, and welcome to our review of the January 2026 market stats for Halifax. A few interesting tidbits, a few things to go into that I think are interesting to keep an eye on. First things first, average sale price, $583,858 for the month of January in 2026. A few things, you're actually down from $605,340 average sale price for December 2025. So that's a pretty actually interesting topic because December is typically a really slow time of year. The average sale price is typically lower. So to see it then drop again for January, we didn't really see an uptick. You can put that down to weather. We've had a tremendous amount of snow this year. That slows down a lot of listings, slows down a lot of active buyers in the area just because of shitty weather, shitty timing. So you can put that down to that. But the really interesting tidbit is it's also down from January 2025, which average sale price was $617,593. So that's actually a $34,000 drop just in a year on the average sale price in Halifax. Just something to keep an eye on. We've been trending around 600K for the last few years, whether that's 25 grand above 600K or 25 grand below 600K. Halifax just seems to be flirting and in and around the 600K market every year. Units. This is where it really gets interesting. Total number of units for sale for January 2026, meaning total number of homes, units, condos, mini homes for sale in all of Halifax HRM is 866 units, which is down from 872 in December. Now, that's not the big deal. What really is a big deal, it's actually down from 1,124 units for sale in November 2025. So that's a really interesting thing to be noteworthy, and because it seems to say that statistic, there's a lot of engagement. Buyers are back in the market. They're buying homes again. We define real estate markets by months of inventory. So seller's market, 0 to 4 months of inventory, balanced market, 4 to 6 months of inventory, and buyer's market, 6+ months of inventory. The number of units for sale and the consumption would give you the indication that we have 2.1 months of inventory in Halifax right now, down from 2.7 months of inventory in November. That just by that drop from 2.7 to 2.1 would indicate that we are moving back into a very, very busy seller's market. Days on market went up to 31 days to 44 days. That's also typical to December to January, especially in January, just because you don't see a lot of sales in December every year, just because it's that time of year where everyone takes a break because of the holidays, spend time with family, yada, yada, yada. But so you typically see days on market go up between those 2 months from December to January as well. But to see that much inventory go away, it ate up almost 300 units of inventory, got eaten up by buyers from November to January. So to see that and to see days on market go up is kind of weird. And if you really dive into it, 443 homes left the market in December 2025. That means they expired. So what expired listing means is when you sign a listing with a realtor, you have a contract. The contract is the duration of what's agreed. Some do 3 months, some do 6 months, some do a year. All that means is for 443 homes or listings reach the end of their contract and decide not to renew with their realtor in the month of December. So none of those listings came back to market. Now, you can speculate all the reasons why those listings never sold and reached the end of their contract. Too high of asking price, market shifting, cooling down, unrealistic expectations on what they could get, lack of interest from buyers. Whatever the reason may be, 443 listings decided to leave the market. Because if you want to sell your house still, you can always renew the contract. You can always sign an extension or do an amendment, and that will keep the listing active. So this is a really fascinating stat to see, because if you were at 1,124 listings active in November 2025 to get down to 866 inside of 2 months, that's basically like 20%. You have to do the math on that one, but almost 20% of the inventory just leaving the market. And the reason why that's interesting is because less options for buyers means that it's more leverage in sellers' hands. So to see that much inventory leave is an indication that, to me, that sellers aren't getting what they're looking for sale prices. Buyers aren't paying what the sellers are looking for their sale prices. The C days on market's going up. It's taking for longer for homes to sell. So just something to really keep an eye on going into 2026, if that trend seems to continue on or not, to see if we shift more into a balanced market. New listings, 418 in January 2026, up from 206 in December 2025. That's typical. No one wants to sell their house in December. No one wants to put their house up unless they absolutely have to in December. Moving into January, typically a lot of people start to get the ball rolling on their sales goals or the real estate goals for the year. That's pretty typical. List to sale price. So list to sale price, this is a statistic of, let's say you list your home for $100 and you sell it for $98. That would mean you had a 98% list to sale price. List sale price was at 97% in December 2025, and it bumped up to 98% in January 2026. It's been trending around 98% since August 2025, so no real change there, no real significant price reductions happening in the last few months. People seem to be getting, within 98% of the list price. As I said, days on market's up to 44 in January 2026 from 31 days on market in December 2025. That's really another interesting stat to keep an eye on. As I said, homes seem to be sticking around a little longer. You're seeing more and more price adjustments. Sellers aren't getting what they're told their homes are worth or what they believe their homes to be worth in this market, and prices down. So all those things can kind of give you maybe give an indication of what's to come. Maybe not. It's hard to tell. We're only in the first month of the year. Pending sales. There are 265 pending sales in January 2026 versus 210 pending sales in December 2025. Once again, you always see that uptick in January 2026 or January of every year as people come out of the holiday season. It's pretty standard. New listings, I already went through that. Total sales, this is interesting. 208 total sales in January 2026. It's actually down from 275 in December 2025. Once again, typically speaking, what we see every year in real estate for the last few years has always been December is a slower time of year. Price points down, days on markets are up, inventory stays cooled. And you don't see a lot of activity that year because people take off the holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, all those holidays that happen that year. People take time off from work and their lives. So real estate is a really slow time. To see total sales be down in 2026 starting out is an interesting note. It gives the indication that not many people are transacting. Once again, the weather plays a big part in this. We've had a snowstorm like every weekend for most of January. I saw a statistic that we had like 3 times the amount of snow in January as a province than the last 2 or 3 Januarys put together. So like the significant amount of snowfall puts a lot of people on the back burner. I know for a fact my own clients have all decided to push back listings just until the weather gets a little better. Buyers can't see much inventory out there. So people want to transact, but they're just not being able to transact. Probably just means for a busier spring market when we finally get the thaw that we're all praying for. Those are all your really big takeaways for January 2026. My thing is the inventory. Inventory being 2.1 months of inventory, which is down from 2.7 months of inventory, and the number of units for sale being down from 1,124 from November 2025 to 866 in January 2026. Though that's where I really want to focus on, what I'll be keeping my eye on, just because to see that much inventory leave would give the impression that the market's hotter than it is. If you were to look at that stat 2 years ago or 5 years ago when the market was really hot and people were multiple offers all the time and prices were being driven up, like you just saw the inventory being eaten away and you saw the average price point go up, 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 up. So supply and demand is the most fundamentals. Less supply, higher demand. Less supply, high demand, prices go up. More supply, low demand, prices come down. Super simple stuff. You saw that in real time at the start of COVID throughout the last few years as our inventory got eaten away by demand that we could not keep up with listings and new builds and new constructions and apartments. It's really interesting to see that it's not consumer demand taking away the inventory or the units for sale. It's actually expired listings. So people just say, you know what? I've tried this thing. I'm not happy with what I'm getting. I'm just gonna wait until I get the price that I'm looking for. Or they could have other reasons for for taking their homes off the market and not reselling them. It's just a matter of someone that keep an eye on, because that is fascinating to watch. If you're talking about 2026 and projections speaking, and why this might be important to keep an eye on, this year in 2026, Halifax is getting the most completed apartment buildings and apartment units since the 70s. So you're going to get a big rush of supply from there. It's also a really big refinance year for a lot of people who took on mortgages. 5-year fix from 2021 when you're giving out historical interest rates of 1.5%, 2% interest rates, and now they're going to be refinancing their mortgage at 4%, 4.5%, somewhere in that ballpark. Why that's important? Because people's monthly payments are going to jump up as they refinance into higher interest rates. And whether or not they can sustain those payments, or maybe the payments are just simply too uncomfortable for them to bear, and they may have to get rid of their house just because of that. So you might see a rush of supply to the market, or a little bump in supply to the market because of that as well, because of turbulence in cost of living crisis and stuff like that. Hard to say, but first month of the year, quite interesting with home prices being down, inventory being down, but for different reasons, days on market being up. So those are my takeaways. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. Thank you. Bye.